This episode is sponsored by Rocket League's Radical Summer, a 9-week in-game event celebrating all things 80s. Play now through August 12th. It's summer, which means it's time for new episodes of your favorite Netflix original series that hasn't been tragically canceled yet. Stranger Things. The show's mythology is not super complicated, but everything has like 20 different names. So before you mix up a mind flayer with a demogorgon and really embarrass yourself, we've got a helpful look back at the first 2 seasons that'll get you all caught up. We open in November of 1983 as a monster breaks loose from a government facility near the town of Hawkins, Indiana, after emerging from a fleshy portal connecting our world to the mysterious beyond. Nearby, 4 middle school friends play Dungeons & Dragons, even though the technology doesn't yet exist for them to live stream it on Twitch, so what's even the point?
An army of troglodytes charge into the chamber.
That's Dungeon Master Mike Wheeler. They're hanging out at his house. His adventurers are Will Byers, Dustin Henderson, and Lucas Sinclair. Mike also has an older sister, Nancy. She's recently started dating popular guy Steve Harrington, who in early season 1 is just the worst. They'll be important later, but not yet. On his way home from questing, Will sees a mysterious figure in the road and crashes his bike. He's then chased by a monster, probably the same one that escaped the lab. When he gets home, Will tries to call for help, but only hears strange feedback on the phone.
Hello? Hello?
Eventually, the monster attacks, and both it and Will seem to vanish. In the morning, Will's increasingly frantic mother Joyce tasks alcoholic, disinterested Hawkins police chief Hopper with finding her boy.
He's missing, is what he is.
Hopper's depressed because he used to have a daughter, but she died.
Sarah, my daughter.
Right away, Hopper suspects Will's dad and Joyce's ex-husband Lonnie of kidnapping.
Give me his number.
You know, Hopper, he has nothing to do with this.
Unsatisfied with this answer, Joyce and her older son Jonathan check out Will's fort in the woods, which he calls Castle Byers. Bygarden would have been funny too, but this was pre-Game of Thrones. Around this time, a young girl with a shaved head and a hospital gown shows up at the local burger spot. She has the digits 011 tattooed on her forearm and seems to have some kind of telekinetic power. Government agents claiming to be from social services show up to reclaim her. They kill the super nice burger chef Benny because they're really more of a pizza freaky off the grid science lab, but the girl uses her supernatural abilities to escape. Meanwhile, Joyce gets a creepy telephone call that messes with the lights and momentarily sounds like Will, and this really sets her off. Lucas, Mike, and Dustin go out searching for Will and find the strange girl instead. Inspired by her tattoo, they call her 11, or L for short. She asks the boys to keep her hidden from bad men, so they stash her in Mike's basement. 11 recognizes Will in a photo and also demonstrates her abilities for her new friends. Because with great power comes great responsibility and also mild nosebleeds. During a party at Steve's place, see, I told you we'd get to them eventually, Nancy's friend Barb feels left out and goes to sit by the pool. She's abducted by a creature and taken to what appears to be another dimension, a ruined version of the real world. Then she's killed by the monster because there's no justice. Really, like none. She was just being a good friend and keeping Nancy from getting into trouble like she asked her to, then gets unceremoniously left by the pool alone after cutting her hand while shotgunning a beer, which she didn't want to do, while her friend hooks up with the worst guy in school, and she still hangs around to make sure she's safe. And what thanks does she get? An unceremonious death and a hashtag. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. While the boys are at school, 11 makes like E.T. and explores Mike's house, watches TV, and has flashbacks to her time being held captive at the Hawkins lab. That's where she developed her psychic ability under the supervision of Dr. Martin Brenner, who she calls Papa. Hopper investigates the lab, but it only makes him more suspicious.
No one breaks in here. Certainly not some kid.
Joyce places lamps and hangs Christmas lights around her house, hoping to use them to communicate with Will, and somehow it works. Eventually, they develop a system to speak. Joyce even paints the alphabet on the wall and begins using the lights to spell out words. He tells her he's still at home.
Right here.
Steve discovers that Will's older brother Jonathan, who was out at night looking for his brother, was creepily taking photos of his party. He gets revenge by smashing Jonathan's camera at school the next day. But then Nancy sees that one of the photos features her missing pal Barb. So the message here is, it's okay to hide and secretly take pictures of people as long as a monster is also there. Nancy goes back to Steve's house later to look for Barb and catches a quick glimpse of the monster. Around this time, Chief Hopper and the police find the body of a boy in the quarry, and it looks like all this supernatural stuff has been for nothing. The body is identified as Will's, and the town mourns his death. But 11 convinces Mike that he's still alive by communicating with him through Mike's walkie-talkie.
Will, is that you? It's Mike. Do you copy?
Joyce likewise refuses to believe that her son is dead, but to be fair, she's a little on edge these days.
She's after him. He's in danger. We have to find him.
Maybe not your go-to resource for the latest on objective reality.
I know it sounds crazy. I sound crazy. Yeah.
The boys give 11 a makeover and take her to school. Yeah, okay, Elle, let's not get conceited. They plan to use their favorite teacher, Mr. Clark's ham radio, in tandem with 11's superpowers to contact Will. Making class bully Troy pee his pants is just a side benefit. They briefly do manage to make contact with Will, which causes Joyce to hear him as well at home. She even sees him trapped inside the walls. Then the radio explodes, typical, always right when you're getting out of the shower or you've made contact with a dark dimension. Nancy takes a closer look at Jonathan's photo of Barb and recognizes the monster as the same one she saw behind Steve's house. She shows Jonathan and they decide to join forces. Meanwhile, Hopper runs a little investigation of his own and discovers that Will's dead body is a fake, so he breaks into the restricted portion of the lab. There he finds the room where 11 was kept and the still open portal between worlds, but then he gets knocked unconscious and wakes up at home, which has now been bugged. At Mike's house, the boys and 11 label the other dimension the Upside Down.
When Elle showed us where Will was, she flipped the board over, remember? Upside down.
Dustin theorizes that the doorway to the Upside Down gives off an electromagnetic current that they can find using compasses.
If we follow the compasses north, they should lead us to the gate.
We'll let Mr. Clark take it from here.
You'd have to create a massive amount of energy, more than humans are currently capable of creating, mind you, to open up some kind of tear in time and space. And then you create a doorway.
Oh yeah, sure, when you put it like that, it makes perfect sense. That's why they do it like that in every movie about wormholes. 11, who's been hiding the truth about the Upside Down from the boys out of fear, messes with their compasses, but Lucas notices and confronts her.
I saw her wiping her nose on the tracks. She was using her powers.
The kids start to fight, and Elle uses her powers to separate Lucas and Mike, rather violently. Lucas is fine, but Elle gets freaked out anyway and runs off. Once on her own, she shoplifts some of her favorite snack food, Eggo waffles, because it's not Stranger Things unless you're fondly remembering products. Nancy and Jonathan go searching in the woods for the monster, and they find a wounded deer that's dragged away by an unseen force. Following the bloody trail, Nancy finds a fleshy portal in the base of a tree and briefly enters the Upside Down. Yeah, I'm sure there's a metaphor somewhere about teenagers and the dangers of exploring unfamiliar fleshy portals, but we have a lot of ground to cover, so let's just move on. Listening for Jonathan's voice, Nancy finds her way back, and they go back to Nancy's house to recover, where Steve spots them together through the window. Steve is upset, but in fairness, he doesn't really know about the real-life demons yet. Across town, Hopper tells Joyce about his recent discoveries.
Will's body was a fake.
Together, they track down Terry Ives, whom Hopper has discovered was a subject of freaky drug experiments the lab conducted years earlier.
This woman, Terry Ives, she claims to have lost her daughter, Jane. She sued Brenner, she sued the government.
When they find her, she's in a catatonic state and can't tell them anything. According to her sister Becky, after the mind control study, she was told that she had a miscarriage.
The thing is, though, is that she didn't know she was pregnant at the time.
Hopper puts together that she actually gave birth to 11, who demonstrated special abilities.
Shit you can do with your mind.
And was kept at the lab in secret. All the kids go out searching for one another, only to be chased by both bullies and Dr. Brenner's goons, who are riding around undercover in Hawkins' power and light vans. 11 breaks Troy the bully's arm and flips one of Brenner's vans, overexerting herself in the process. A flashback reveals that she was the one who initially opened the portal to the Upside Down during one of Dr. Brenner's experiments. So who's the real monster after all?
I'm the monster.
Oh, wow, she admits it. 11 needs an isolation tank to concentrate her powers and find Will and Barb, so they create one using a kiddie pool. Once in the empty void between worlds, 11 zeroes right in on Barb's desiccated corpse. Barb's desiccated corpse, by the way, also a great name for a grindcore band. She then finds Will in the Upside Down's version of Castle Byers. Hopper and Joyce break into the lab, hoping to use the portal to go after Will, but they're captured. At the same time, Nancy and Jonathan go after the monster, which the kids have nicknamed the Demogorgon, after Dungeons and Dragons. Hey, they're kids, this is a lot to process. Brenner says he needs Joyce and Hopper's help to defeat the monster. He sends them into the Upside Down wearing special suits to protect them from the toxic atmosphere. Brenner assumes the monster will just kill them, solving his little police chief and hysterical mother problem.
And if they find the boy?
It's not gonna happen.
But instead, they successfully locate Upside Down Castle Byers, but Will is nowhere to be found and the search continues. Steve shows up at the Byers house and finds Nancy and Jonathan plotting to kill the Demogorgon. Oh, and he's bruised because he and Jonathan got into a fight and there was some graffiti, and honestly, none of that matters at all right now. He helps them catch the creature in a bear trap and light it on fire, but when the fire goes out, the Demogorgon is gone. Hiding out at the school gives Mike and 11 more of a chance to connect. He invites her to stay with his family when all the demon slaying is over, and they share their first kiss. Oh. Brenner's men find them, but Elle uses her powers to fight back, draining her, I don't know, a levometer or whatever. Just when all hope seems lost, the blood from all the murdered folks attracts the Demogorgon. It attacks Brenner, killing him. 11 uses the last of her power to make it disappear and vanishes herself in the process. Back in the Upside Down, Joyce and Hopper find Will, who has vines and tendrils growing inside of him. They pull out the gunk and perform CPR to save his life. A month later, Mike has kept his basement set up for 11 in hopes she'll return someday. Nancy gives Jonathan a new camera for Christmas, but stays with Steve. Turns out she makes all romantic decisions based solely on monster fighting ability. Hopper leaves Eggo waffles in the forest for 11, but she doesn't even have a toaster in the woods. Hop, this is a bad gift. And in the final sequence, Will goes to the bathroom and coughs up a black slug. He wisely decides not to tell anyone.
Okay? Yeah, I'm okay.
Probably fine. I wouldn't sweat it. Season 2 picks up in October 1984, a little less than 1 year after the vomiting slug incident. Of course, a new season means new characters. Most notably, there's the boys' new classmate, the beguiling Max Mayfield. They hit it off right away.
Stop spying on me, creeps.
Well, shit.
Max has a not very nice older stepbrother, Billy Hargrove.
You're a piece of shit, but we're family now, whether we like it or not, meaning I'm stuck looking out for you.
He's a big hit with the ladies.
Who is that?
And honestly, also the guys.
We got ourselves a new cat king, Harrington.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, eat it, Harrington.
Plus, Joyce has a new boyfriend, longtime Hawkins resident and local Radio Shack manager, Bob Newby.
You gotta find the RFP1U with coaxial cable so you can connect the video ins and outs.
We also meet a private investigator and former journalist named Murray Bauman, who's been hired by Barb's parents to look into her disappearance. He's heard wild stories about 11 and suspects some kind of communist conspiracy. Hey, remember the 80s?
This girl, she's some kind of a Russian weapon, right?
Hopper gets a call from a local pumpkin patch where the crops have all mysteriously rotted. Before long, more local farms are infected, and you've got to wonder if this is going to pay off later. Meanwhile, Nancy and Steve are closer than ever.
I love you.
I love you too.
But she's remained close friends with Jonathan after their season 1 experiences. Nancy, feeling guilty, wants to tell Barb's parents everything about what happened.
We're going to find our Barb.
But Steve tells her not to, fearing the government coming back for them.
They could put us in jail, okay? Or worse, they could destroy our families.
Oh, and Hopper hasn't told anyone, but 11 is alive, back in town, and being kept hidden and safe in a remote cabin. After defeating the Demogorgon, 11 was able to escape the Upside Down, but realized the police and government agents on the right side up were still on her trail. Oh, you don't have your own remote cabin? Weirdo.
Dinner first, then dessert.
She's antsy to go see her friends, particularly Mike, but Hopper says it's not safe.
You know the rules.
While hanging at the arcade, Will has a vision of a huge storm on the horizon. And then later, he sees a massive spider-like creature approaching town. So he's definitely still connected to the Upside Down somehow. A concerned Hopper, Will, and Joyce visit Hawkins' lab and meet Dr. Brenner's replacement, Dr. Sam Owens.
What's your favorite candy? desert island candy if you had to pick one.
Yeah, okay. He doesn't seem at all like a manipulative conspirator trying to win you over with false kindness.
I'm on your side.
Having said that, it does appear that Owens and his team are trying to contain the portal to the Upside Down rather than experiment with it like Team Modine was doing. Will tells Dr. Owens that during his vision at the arcade, he sensed a presence that wanted to kill everyone but him.
I felt this evil, like it was looking at me.
The kids go to school on Halloween dressed as Ghostbusters, and it goes over great.
Who are you gonna call? The nerds!
So well, in fact, that Billy tries to run over Mike, Lucas, and Dustin with his car.
That was a close one, huh?
Later, they all go out trick-or-treating and even convince Max to come along. Nearby, Nancy gets drunk at a Halloween party and tells off Steve.
You don't love me?
Bullshit.
Ultimately, it's Jonathan who brings her home, and there's definitely something there between them, but you know what they say, once you go Steve, it's hard to leave. Nailed it. As an eventful October 31st draws to a close, Dustin finds a creature in the garbage which he names D'Artagnan, or Dart for short, because it likes Three Musketeers bars and because all 13-year-olds love literary references.
I'm gonna call you D'Artagnan.
The following day, 11 leaves the cabin and goes looking for Mike. At school, the gang concludes that Dart is from the Upside Down and also that he's gross, which is unfortunate because almost right away, he grows extra legs and escapes. During the search, 11 shows up at school, sees Mike with Max, assumes they're together, and gets jealous. To be young, psionic, and in love. A bit later, Will finds Dart in the bathroom, but the encounter triggers another flash to the Upside Down, where the huge spider-like monster chases the boy and seemingly possesses him. Joyce and Will's friends find him mid-episode in a field near the school.
Okay, that totally freaked me out.
Once he's back at home, Will tells his mother more about the monster. He also starts acting kinda strange.
No.
What?
He likes it cold.
Will's freakout continues, so Joyce calls in the big guns.
Joyce Byers has called 8 times already this morning.
Will draws them a series of crazy intersecting lines, which Hopper connects to the dead pumpkins.
Vines.
Then Bob goes one step further.
It's a map of Hawkins.
Later, while cleaning up the cabin, 11 finds Hopper's file on Terry Ives. Reaching out psychically, she realizes Terry is her mother and hears her real name for the first time. Nancy and Jonathan go to tell Barb's parents about what they know, but are confronted by government agents and brought to Dr. Owens.
Not very pleasant in here, is it?
He shows them the open portal and says it's his job to ensure the secrecy of what happened. Then Owens lets them go, which was maybe a mistake because wouldn't you know, they recorded everything.
Mistakes have been made.
Yeah, that's what I said. Speaking of unfortunate mistakes, a much larger dart eats Dustin's cat. Monsters, they grow up so fast. While inspecting the already expansive supernatural tunnels underneath Hawkins, Hopper is sprayed by demon spores and loses consciousness. He comes to but begins vomiting black sludge, much like I did when I tried original recipe for Loco. Mike encourages Will to use his connection to the Upside Down to let them track what they're now calling the Shadow Monster.
You're like a spy now. A super spy. Spying on the Shadow Monster.
Well, except when they also call it
The Mind Flayer.
What the hell is that?
It's a monster from an unknown
Oh
dimension.
my god, none of this is real. This is a kid's game.
11 visits her mom and aunt, but can't get Terry to speak with her. Eventually, she's able to connect to some of her mother's memories using the television.
Stop talking.
Yeah, I'm the narrator, that's my job. Anyway, 11 enters Terry's mind and sees her own birth, and Terry breaking into Hawkins' lab in an unsuccessful attempt to free her. But Terry was captured by Dr. Brenner, whose team wiped her mind using electroshock treatments. You know, I'm starting to think this Dr. Brenner was not a very nice guy. On a journey of their own, Nancy and Jonathan find Murray and tell him about Barb. Like all responsible cranks, he believes them right away.
I believe you, but that's not the problem. You don't need me to believe you, you need them to believe you.
They decide to make the story less fantastical so it's more likely to be accepted by the public.
Everyone will nod their heads and say, see? Ha! I knew it!
Nancy and Jonathan spend the night at Murray's as they make watered-down copies of their Hawkins lab tape to mail around to the press. But nothing happens, you guys. Come on.
No, I mean, we're just friends.
Friends.
Yeah, okay, something happens.
Jonathan, how was the pullout?
About as uncomfortable as your interest in the sex lives of high school students. At the lab, Dr. Owens finds that the Upside Down is leaking into our world by analyzing samples of Hawkins' soil. You know, just the basic soilograph. It's a simple enough procedure. He postulates that everything from the Upside Down is connected via a hive mind. Will uses his powers to locate Hopper, whom they venture into the Upside Down to rescue.
Turn right.
While they search, the team from Hawkins' lab find Hopper and free him by burning more tendrils. This also hurts Will, who's still connected to the hive mind. So they take him back to the lab because this sounds like a lab kind of problem. Meanwhile, a still growing Dart escapes Dustin's house, so he goes on the hunt along with Steve. Dr. Owens shows Hopper the gate to the Upside Down, which has grown considerably. They want to burn it, but are afraid that would kill Will, who eventually wakes up, but has no memories of the past year. Not even Bob. Who could forget Bob?
Who is that?
Steve and his crew manage to lure in Dart, but he is aligned with other adolescent Demogorgons, or Demodogs for short.
Demodogs. Like Demogorgon and dogs. Like, you put them together, it sounds pretty badass.
How is this important right now?
They corner the kids in a discarded school bus before apparently being called away.
They're going somewhere.
At Hawkins' lab, Will agrees to help lab workers map the Upside Down, but this is actually a reverse double bluff trap laid by the shadow monster working through Will. He thinks he's so smart.
He made me do it.
The soldiers are killed by Dart and his fellow Demodogs. Meanwhile, through her mother's memories, 11 realizes that there were other kids being held with her in the lab. In the series' most divisive and controversial episode to date, 11 uses her powers to track one of them, Callie, to a rundown industrial area in Chicago. Callie, who has 008 on her wrist, also has a power. She can create powerful illusions in people's minds. She teaches 11 to channel her powers by focusing on her rage, which is not Yoda's method, but still seems effective. Callie and her collective of 80 stereotypes like to track down and get revenge on former Hawkins lab staffers, including this guy, Ray Carroll, who helped torture 11's mom. When they find him, Ray tells them that Dr. Brenner is still alive. Also, 11 sees a photo of him and his family and starts to have second thoughts about doing murder. 11 uses her powers to stop the K-Team from hurting Ray. Sensing that Mike and Hopper are in danger, 11 quits her Callie's Angel spinoff and returns to Hawkins to save them.
I'm going to my friends.
Meanwhile, back in the series Stranger Things, everyone's reunited at the lab, but it's been overrun with Demodogs. Bob leaves the group to flip the power back on because Jurassic Park doesn't come out for 9 more years, and he clearly doesn't know how dangerous this is. So, he's dead. Everyone else gets away and hides at the buyer's house.
We stay here and we wait for help.
Will, still under the control of the shadow monster, aka the Mind Flayer, aka the big spider thing, uses Morse code to communicate the message, "Close gate."
Close gate.
These are some resourceful kids. The Demodogs figure out where they're hiding, but 11 shows up just in time to fend them off. 11 believes she has the power to close the gate for good.
I can do it.
So she and Hopper return to the lab. Once they arrive, Hopper and 11 find a severely injured Dr. Owens, who sort of tacitly agrees to help her lead a more normal life if they all survive.
It's 11. 11, Doc Owens, 11.
Billy shows up at the buyer's place looking for Max and picks a fight with Steve. You see, kids, he's a bully because his dad bullies him.
Yes, sir.
It's a vicious cycle. Anyway, Max knocks him out with a sedative, and the kids steal his car. Their plan is to burn the underground tunnels and distract the Demodogs. They encounter Dart once more, but Dustin manages to calm him enough to allow their escape. Meanwhile, Joyce, Jonathan, and Nancy expose Will to extreme heat, expelling the Mind Flayer from his body. Eleven and Hopper make it to the gate, and she uses her powers to close it. Oh, she went full Dark Phoenix. You never go full Dark Phoenix. This kills all the remaining Demogorgons, Demodogs, Demo Tapes, Democracy, Demo just about everything. A month later, Nancy and Jonathan's tape is picked up by the national press, so Hawkins' lab is shut down, and Barb is given a funeral. Owens has forged a birth certificate for 11, formally renaming her Jane and indicating that she's Hopper's daughter. Okay, but he's definitely still going to kill everyone on Weyland-Yutani's behalf eventually. I'm onto this guy. All the kids, including 11/Jane, attend the school's annual snowball. Max and Lucas like each other. Nancy throws the lonely Dustin a pity dance. Mike and 11 pick up where they left off, and everything seems nice until we see in the Upside Down that the Mind Flayer is still alive and thirsty for more. And that's it. All you need to know about Stranger Things before watching the 3rd season. In fact, probably a lot more than you need to know about Stranger Things before watching the 3rd season. Psychic Girl helps some suburban kids fight monsters from an alternate dimension. You know, actually that would have been almost as good as this summary. Okay, consider that a cram it for this cram it. Now go catch up on some homework, you nutty kids. This episode was sponsored by Rocket League's Radical Summer, a 9-week in-game event celebrating all things 80s, including free items, new modes, and premium DLC. Play now through August 12th.